All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? This is Immigration Attorney Moumita. I'm coming to you live to talk to you about immigration and to see the questions that you may have on your mind today. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Moumita Rahman, and I am an immigration attorney. I have been practicing immigration law for the past 14 years, and it is my pleasure to do the work that I do because I believe that immigrants make America great already. I thank you for your hard work, your sacrifice, your tears, your struggles, and for the joy that you bring to this country. Thank you so much. So if you do have a question about your immigration process, if you have been worried about your immigration case or about what may happen in your situation, go ahead and post your question in the box below, and I will do my best to answer as many questions live that I can in the time that I have today. So today I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the T visa situation, because this is the case that we deal with a lot. And I'm in New York City. Across the street from my building, there has been construction going on. Slowly over the past 2 years, they've been building another high-rise building, and week after week, I'm seeing one floor of this be built. I'm on the 12th floor. This building is already up to 12 floors, and it got me thinking how much pressure that construction workers are underneath to go ahead and finish a construction project, right? You're being driven really hard. And sometimes what may happen in a lot of construction jobs is that your construction manager, the foreman, they don't treat you well, right? You're undocumented. They don't give you safety equipment. They make you do all the hard jobs. They make you do all the difficult jobs without proper safety equipment, without proper training, and you get screamed at, right? You get screamed at, you get yelled at, your immigration status gets brought up, and they make fun of your immigration status, or they make threats and jokes to get you deported or get you in trouble with ICE when these things happen at your job, especially if you're in construction. But it doesn't matter what sort of area you're in. But I think that definitely the more difficult jobs that have these sorts of pressures, it is worth you knowing that you may qualify for a T visa and legal status in your case if you have gone through horrible working conditions, not getting paid properly, having a racist boss who threatens you, having assault. If you're assaulted at work, if you're sexually assaulted at work or sexually harassed at work, that can also come underneath this circumstance, okay? So call our office 212-248-7907. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start answering questions immediately today. Somebody asked me to explain the visa bulletin. Oh man, I can't explain the visa bulletin right now. That'll take like an hour to explain. However, what you can do is you can follow me on YouTube. I do have videos about the visa bulletin, and I do help explain how it goes out. But in short, the visa bulletin is going to basically give a restriction to anyone who is not the spouse, parent, or child under 21 of a U.S. citizen. If you're not a spouse or a child under 21 or a parent of a U.S. citizen, then your life is going to be governed by the visa bulletin. And the visa bulletin basically it parcels out, it gives out visas every year, and basically it's like a line. It's like basically you have to take a ticket, and the ticket that you take to get on the line to get a green card is basically going to be the date that you file your application. So that is the visa bulletin in a nutshell, okay? Shella Kings, I'm a citizen and I married my husband about 2 weeks ago. His son came to the US when he was 4 and was denied asylum. He's 12 now. Are we able to add him to my husband's immigration process? Shella Kings, if you have filed an I-130 for your husband, there's your stepson is legally your child for immigration purposes. So anytime you get married to a US citizen, your children under 21 and even above 21 are automatically considered children of your US citizen spouses. You don't have to legally adopt them. And as long as you get married before the child turns, I think it's 16 or 18, that child is legally considered your child, okay? And Shella, yes, you would actually, because you're a US citizen, you would actually have to file a whole new I-130 just for that child. And I recommend that you do it as quickly as you can because time is of the essence, okay? 212-248-7907. Let's see. Let's see what we have on TikTok. Davidson is asking, hi, my case was sent to the National Record Center, National Visa Center, and they said it will be sent to the local field office. How long will it take for a decision? If your case has been sent to the local office, I would say how long it will take depends on how busy that office is, because sometimes they have to schedule you for an interview. And interview wait times can be anywhere from 3 months to like a year, depending on your location. How long does the U visa take? From Eddie Flowers. Eddie Flowers, the U visa is taking 5 to 10 years these days. If my I-130 was approved in September 2023, how much longer will my wait time be for an interview in Juarez from Los Buquis? So if your I-130 was approved in 2023 and you're waiting for an interview in Ciudad Juarez, I'm seeing that the wait time for an interview in Ciudad Juarez take between 1.5 to 2.5 years for most people. Thank you for the follow. I sponsored my son and he had his interview over a year ago and he's still waiting for his visa. From Diane McFarland. Diane, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for the follow, Stephen. Michael, I've been married and got my work authorization and travel document. How much more time will it take for a green card to be processed? I filed in VA from Michael. Okay, every time, if you have a question about how long your green card is going to take, it's going to always depend on a few things. Number one, what category of green card are you filing? And number two, do you have any issues or complications in your case? And number three, where you are filing. So Virginia, as far as I know, is a very quick location. Cases get processed pretty fast in Virginia. So I've had green cards be approved between 6 months to a year over there. But if you have any issues and they want to call you for an interview, then it will take longer than that. Ravi, if somebody is here illegally and his brother made a sibling file a long time ago and it's approved, how can he benefit from that? From Ravi. Ravi, unfortunately, if your sibling filed for you and if they did not file before April 30th, 2001, even if you have a sibling petition approved for you and you're the intending immigrant, that's not going to help you, and you may not. It's not going to be easy to get a green card, because for most sibling petitions, if your sibling is going to sponsor you and you are already in the US, you can't file for a green card unless you're still in status and unless your visa is not expired and unless you don't have more than 180 days of unlawful presence. So for most of you out there, if you've been waiting for your sibling petition to be approved, you may be here for 5, 10, 20 years already. But there is one exception. If your sibling filed for you before April 30th, 2001, then even if your status is long since expired, even if you entered the country illegally, you may still be eligible to do a green card application right now, because there's a special provision of law called Section 245I, adjustment of status, that allows you to take advantage of the fact that your sibling filed an application before April 30th, 2001. So if that is your case, you can give us a call, 212-248-7907. Sultan Raki, I'm located in New York City and I work with clients all over the US. Is there any way to expedite a DACA renewal? Definitely. You can ask for an expedite for pretty much any type of case in immigration, but you have to give them documentation. If you want to expedite your case, you have to show an urgent reason. You have to show an emergency why your case needs to get expedited and approved faster than normal. And you also have to give documentation to support why you're asking for it to be expedited. So for example, let's say you have a medical emergency, you need to get treatment outside the country, and that's why you need to get your whatever approved fast. Well, you're gonna have to give documentation of that illness, your prognosis, and why getting this application approved faster is gonna help you with that, okay? Rahul, hello. I wanted to ask for VAWA purposes, to prove the status of the abuser who was born a U.S. citizen. I do not have the birth certificate to prove that. So what can I do from Rahul? So Rahul, this is a great question. For those of you out there who are married to a U.S. citizen who is not helping you file for your papers, who is giving you a hard time, who is always threatening to divorce you, or who's always demanding money from you, or who's always putting you down and making you do things, and saying things to basically hurt you. Sometimes they may be putting their hands on you physically as well. In those situations, you may be able to file for a green card by yourself. And this is something that every immigrant should know about, because no one should stay trapped in a situation where they're in a marriage to a US citizen and not able to get their green card because of what the US citizen is doing, right? So if you are in that situation, you may be eligible to file for a green card by yourself through the application called VAWA. And for that, you need to show that your spouse is a US citizen. But what happens if you don't have a photocopy of their birth certificate or their passport or their green card? Well, even if you don't have any of that, you can actually request that USCIS verify their citizenship status independently of you, but you have to give as much information as you can. So at a bare minimum, you should be giving your spouse's full name, their date of birth, where they're born. And there are a lot of things that we can look up online, by ourselves too. Like we can sometimes look up voter registration records. Sometimes if you just Google somebody, you can find records of them online. So there's lots of ways that you can try to give some sort of circumstantial evidence to prove that your spouse has US citizenship. And then you can go the extra step of asking for USCIS to verify it on their own too. Let's see, I see a comment here. Ali, thank you so much. Ali, she's my lawyer. She helps me a lot. Even though we don't see each other, and thank you to her employees for giving me the best service. Ali, thank you so much. I'll make sure to pass that along to my team. Adnan Malik, I had a medical RFE and I submitted them all. What are my chances for an interview from Adnan? Adnan, there's still a small possibility of an interview. Okay. My VAWA was approved. How can I go about getting my social security number, and what document should I bring to the social security office? From Kiara. Kiara, congratulations on getting your VAWA approved. Now, if your VAWA has been approved and you still don't have your social security number, then you can actually take your work permit and go to the social security office and make an appointment and apply for a new social security card, okay? It's not that difficult, but it does take some time. So if you don't have your social security number yet, then I recommend that you do it. And for our clients, for people who we help with their work permits and their green cards, normally what we do in our office is when we are filing your VAWA application, we are usually filing it along with the green card application, along with the work permit application, and along with the travel permission request. And what USCIS will do is what they will approve the work authorization and travel document first. They tend to, for the like 90% of the time, they will issue what is called a combo card, where they will process both of the applications together in one card. And they also notify Social Security of the fact that this person now has a work permit, and then Social Security Administration will send you a Social Security card within, I would say, about 2 months. 2 to 6 months after the work permit is approved. So if you still don't have it, you have to take yourself to the Social Security office and make an application either for a replacement or for a first-time card once you get your work permit. What if you get divorced or your conditional green card application is pending? From Hardy and Cassie, and I saw some gifts on TikTok. Thank you so much. Hardy and anyone else who has a 2-year conditional residency card and you're about to get divorced from your spouse. If your case, your I-751 case is currently pending and you have separated from your spouse, you have gotten divorced, or they're threatening to divorce, you really have to take action right now. You have to speak to an attorney to find out what your options are, because time is of the essence kind of, and you don't want to let that linger. And here's what can happen. If you have a pending I-751 application and your spouse is threatening to get divorced, speak to a lawyer, because you may be able to amend your application to ask for a waiver due to extreme cruelty and battery, because frequently what will happen is a lot of times it's not, look, I'm sorry, I've been doing this for so long that I have rarely seen a marriage fall apart because of just differences. Usually there's a lot of things happening, right? And then your spouse doesn't want to help you with your immigration case anymore because they're upset at you, they're mad at you, they want to take it out on you, they want to make you suffer. And those are actually signs of emotional abuse. And I have done so many extreme cruelty and battery waivers. And here are some telltale signs that if you are about to get divorced or if you are separated from your spouse, why it might be better to do an extreme cruelty and battery waiver versus a divorce waiver. Number one, if you don't have a lot of evidence. the number one reason why people don't have a lot of evidence for their I-751 application is usually because the spouse, your US citizen spouse, is not cooperating with you to put your name on records, to file taxes jointly with you, to join accounts together, or sometimes they have done that and they just don't give you the documents, right? So you have nothing to file with your I-751. And if you don't have access to documents because of that reason, that is manipulation, and that is control, and that is a sign of extreme cruelty, okay? And that is like if you don't have a lot of documents with which to file your I-751, immigration won't like it. They're going to consider it to be like a fraud, and they're going to issue a request for evidence. They're going to ask you to come for an interview. And one very good way to explain why you don't have the documentation is to file for the extreme cruelty and battery waiver. Number two, if your spouse has filed the I-751 with you, but then they tell you that they don't want to go through with it, they're not going to go to the interview, and they move out on you, that you guys separate, or they just leave, right? Or they start cheating on you, right? Then again, this goes back to the sign, like it may be time to look into doing a waiver together. Now, when you should do a divorce waiver instead of an extreme cruelty and battery waiver, well, the divorce waiver works best for people who have a lot of evidence and who have already gotten divorced. If you already have your divorce certificate and you have a lot of good marriage evidence from your marriage, then the divorce waiver is usually okay to do. But if you don't have a lot of evidence, or your divorce is not yet final and your situation is unstable, then it's time to look into the extreme cruelty and battery waiver, okay? You can call us at 212-248-7907. Philly Nicole, hi, I'm a mommy of 4 citizen kids. They're still little, and I've been living in the US for almost 11 years. Is there any chance for me to get legal status from Philly Nicole? Philly and Nicole, thank you so much for your message. Being a mom of 4 kids is not easy. And then also, if you don't have any status, that's just really scary, right? Because you're probably worried about what's going to happen to you. Will you be safe? Is there any chance for you? Now, if your children are under 21, then you can't really get status through them unless one of your children has a lot of medical needs. If they're very sick, then we can help you do something called medical deferred action. However, I want my clients to be, medical deferred action is just a work permit. It doesn't give you any status. It gives you protection against deportation, but no status. What I like to look at for a lot of my clients, if you're not married to a US citizen, I like to see if they qualify for a T visa or a U visa, because these 2 things will put them on a pathway towards a green card, okay? So Philly Nicole, you can call us 212-248-7907. So I'm gonna tell you about 2 situations where T visas can frequently arise, can commonly arise for somebody who has no citizen family member, no US citizen marriage, no employers to sponsor them. Now, if there's 2 most common ways that I see T visas come up. Number one is for basically forced labor. If you have ever worked for somebody who has not treated you equally, right? They don't pay you properly. They withhold wages. Sometimes you don't get paid at all, right? Sometimes you don't get to take a break. You don't get to leave for lunch. Your boss gets in your face and they scream, they curse at you. They might bring up your immigration status. They might make fun of the country that you're from. These sorts of signs are basically signs that when you're in the workplace, you're doing the work for your boss out of fear, right? When you're doing the work for your boss out of fear because you are afraid of what your boss is going to do to you if you don't listen or if you don't do things exactly as how they say. That's a very good sign that you may be eligible for a T visa. And by the way, this could be for a current boss, this could be for a past boss, your boss could be dead, like the business could be out of business. It doesn't matter. If it has ever happened to you, then it's a sign that you may qualify for a T visa. And the number 2 way that I see T visas happen for a lot of clients is if you're in a relationship with somebody. If you're in a relationship with somebody and they are, they treat you more like a servant than like an equal partner. They demand you make them food, at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 11 p.m. when they come home at night, doesn't matter what time. They demand you do things a certain way in the house. and you literally feel like you're serving them all the time, right? And you're afraid of what they're going to do if you don't listen to them. That's also a possible T visa situation. And if that has ever applied to you, and you're in this country, you have kids who are relying on you, you don't want to be deported, you don't have any other option, this is potentially a way for you to move forward, okay? So Philly Nicole, you can call us at 212-248-7907. Donna, thank you for watching. Judas, thank you. What happens if the U.S. citizen dies while the green card application is processing from John CB? John CB, well, first of all, I'm really sorry to anyone whose citizen may have passed away during the process. If you have already filed the I-130 and your spouse passes away, your I-130 automatically converts to an I-360 widower application. We just had a widower application. Actually, sorry, story time, guys. Story time. I'm going to tell you about an application that just got approved yesterday for one of our clients for whom we did a widower application. This client, and I have to share this because it's such big news and I haven't had a chance to call the client yet, so hopefully they're not watching, but we had a client who did have a green card, who did have a 2-year residency card, but Customs and Border Patrol, what can I say? They can be really racist sometimes, right? They can give you a lot of problems. And when he had traveled abroad to do something in his home country, and upon his return to the US, he got questioned heavily by Customs and Border Patrol, who did not believe that his marriage was real. And I know nobody wants to hear this, but yes, it can happen. And the bad news is that the Customs and Border Patrol actually pressured him into giving up, signing away his green card and abandoning it. And he was not allowed into the US, and he got stuck in his home country. And while he was stuck there, his poor wife passed away. And his wife passed away, and he was not allowed to come in. He could do nothing else. And he had this thing on his record by Customs and Border Patrol. So many years have passed, and we actually filed an I-360 widower application for him, and we got a big challenge to it because, again, like, the record did not look that great because of what Customs and Border Patrol wrote down. But we responded to the request for evidence. We won it because yesterday it got approved, and now we're going to process the client through the consulate in his country so he can come back to the U.S. and see his wife's grave for the first time in years. It is truly unfortunate what government officials put people through because of their racist beliefs, stereotypes, and prejudices. We just got an I-485 based on VAWA approved yesterday as well. And I actually thought for a while that I might have to file a complaint against the officer because when this client was South Asian, married to an African-American woman. And again, stereotypes exist. And as soon as we walked into the interview, the officer was basically intent on trying to get his VAWA revoked. And I had to put an end to that and stop to that. And I called the supervisor because what she was doing was inappropriate and not right. I fought back. And, had I not been there, the client, who knows what would have happened to the client's case. So anyway, these things do happen. It's the unfortunate reality that, when you're dealing with immigration officers, with customs officers, with immigration judges, sometimes, they're people are flawed. They have their own beliefs. And not everybody has good intentions, okay? Sometimes some of these immigration officers, sometimes some of these Customs and Border Patrol officers, they truly believe that their job is something a lot extra than it needs to be. All right. All right. Is an RFB for medicals positive in a marriage-based green card adjustment of status from its Cyril? Cyril, yes, it's positive. It means that your case is moving forward. I forget what I was answering before, so I got off track. I was approved for VAWA in 2020 and only got a work permit. Why is this taking so long? From Susie. Susie, if you got approved for VAWA, you have to double check that you also filed an I-485. Now, I don't know why a lot of lawyers will not file the I-360 with the I-485, but when you file the I-360 VAWA application, that's not a green card application. That's just VAWA. If you want a green card, you also have to file the I-485 application. So if you got approved in 2020 and you still don't have your green card, that is probably a high indication that you did not file an I-485. So you should double check that. Speak with your lawyer. Hopefully you work with one. And if you didn't, you can give us a call, 212-248-7907. What is the process for applying for my child from Sultan Iraqi? Sultan Iraqi, if you're a US citizen, the very first thing that you'll probably need to do is file an I-130. Even if your child is outside the US, if they're inside the US, same thing. And depending on where your child is located, the process will be a little bit different. It can take anywhere from under a year inside the US to a year and a half outside the US. I have US and Mexican citizenship. I use my Mexican citizenship to get married. Will it be an issue? From David Ramos. David, no, that should not be an issue. As long as your marriage is legal wherever it took place, it should be fine. Edgar is asking how many months of wait for the process for the waiver. Edgar, waivers can take anywhere from a year and a half to 3 years. Take a screenshot. I see somebody said they tried to call us but never got a call back. We'll look into that. Is child support and spousal support a form of abuse? What? I don't really know what that means. So if you're not getting child support, if you're not getting spousal support, then that can be a form of abuse. But just because you're forced, if the court orders you to pay child support, that's not abuse, man. That's your obligation as a parent. But it's the other way around, and your spouse is not supporting you at all. Like they're not helping you take care of the kids. That's a problem, and yeah, that can be abuse. My husband received his appointment notice for the I-485 marriage-based green card. They tell you whether or not you're getting your green card after the interview from Nazjan. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes you just have to wait for something to come in the mail, and you may wait up to 4 months for a decision. Case Lively, if someone is a green card holder and applied for a spouse outside the US, how long does it take from Case Lively? If you are a green card holder and you're applying to bring your spouse to the US, it will take between 2 to 3 years because at this moment, the visa bulletin is not current for your spouse's category. So the wait time can be a couple of years for that. And then you still have to add on the processing time, the regular processing time, which can be about 1.5 years to 2 years. If we deny your asylum at the border, are you deported from A's, from S? Sometimes it just depends. Like, are you detained? If you're not detained, then you may not get deported right away. You just get an order of removal, and it's up to you to comply with that. Can you file for citizenship if you owe child support from Father Bling? Father Bling, yes. However, you need to be actively repaying your child support, and you can't have any back child support because that is against good moral character. Can someone petition through marriage for someone who is out of status, but upon entering immigration put no AOS or EOS on their passport? From Keisha, yes. That's so funny when Customs and Border Patrol does that. So sometimes when you're coming into the US, customs officer will write down in your passport, no adjustment, no AOS or no extension of status, but they don't control that. They don't have jurisdiction over that. But what it does mean, if they did write that in your passport, it basically means that they suspected that you're going to stay in the U.S. So if you do have that, that marcation inside your passport that says no AOS, no EOS, no extension, that basically means that customs red flags you because you're coming in and out too much or you're staying for too long periods of time. So if you then end up getting married to a U.S. citizen, you want to be very careful because you want to, number one, you want to review what you said at customs, because if you lied at customs, that's going to catch up with you when you do your marriage case. For example, some people will lie and say, oh, well, I'm just here to visit. I'm just here to do sightseeing, but then, it turns out that you were engaged already at that time. So you're not really here to sightsee, right? So that's number one. Number two, you want to keep an eye on the date that you get married, because if you get that written on your passport and you get married like a week after that, then that can indicate that you already had, that you did actually have an intention to stay in the U.S. and to immigrate in the U.S., and that can end up being a problem for your immigration case too. So if you do have that markation in your passport, no AOS, no EOS, and you end up getting married to somebody who's a citizen, you definitely want to work with a lawyer to make sure your case is done properly, so that any potential challenges can be taken care of, and not turn into more of a problem, right? And you can call us Keisha 212-248-7907. My husband, who's a U.S. citizen, filed the I-130 in May. I got a receipt from immigration. Should I go ahead with the other forms, and which one should he file next? From Este. I can't really answer what you should file next, but what I can say is that if you are married to a U.S. citizen and you have a legal entry into the United States, there's no reason for you to not file the I-130 and the I-485 together. And if you don't file it together, and you're otherwise eligible to file the I-485, my advice is to file it as soon as you can, because the sooner you file it, the sooner you're gonna get your green card. You don't need to wait for your I-130 to get approved first before you file your I-485, unless your spouse is a green card holder. If your spouse is a green card holder, then you can't always file those two things together, okay? For cancellation of removal, what are the supporting documents that you need to start collecting from Lucien Campari? Lucien, cancellation of removal. If you are doing cancellation of removal in court and you're in removal, basically you're in deportation, and you've told the judge that you are seeking cancellation of removal because you have a U.S. citizen spouse, child, or parent who's going to suffer exceptional and unusual hardship if you are deported from the U.S., you have to show that through documentation. And later you'll go through testimony as well, and you should work with your lawyers about that. But typically the hardships that you can show are going to be on medical hardships, psychological hardships, financial hardships, and anything else that can show that your relative, your U.S. relative, is going to suffer some sort of exceptional hardship or unusual hardship should you leave the U.S. or should they be forced to relocate with you out of the U.S. Vishnu, how long will it take for me to get your EAD and travel document if you filed in December? Vishnu, I would say it takes between 6 to 10 months for clients to get their EAD and travel documents. Sometimes it could take less time, sometimes it could take more time, but this is the average time that I'm seeing right now. Thank you for being a client. Adnan, you're welcome. Can one travel internationally on a 2-year conditional residency card without any issues from Blessed and Highly Favored? Blessed and Highly Favored, I love your username. So can you travel, if you have a 2-year residency card, can you travel with us with no problem? And the answer is that you should usually be able to travel without problems, because you are now, when you have a 2-year residency card, that is a 2-year residency card of your residency in the US. So you're basically a green card holder, even though the card is only for 2 years. So yes, for the most part, you should be fine to travel. However, I just want to caution that just because you have that, sometimes you want to be careful, like make sure you don't have, look, here are some things that happen. If you are going through a rocky time in your marriage and you start seeing other people, well, look, if you're going through customs and customs wants to go through your phone and they see that you're having an affair or you're with somebody else, or they see some sort of evidence that's contrary to you having a good faith marriage, that's going to be a problem for you. Number two, if you have any sort of criminal issues in your travel, that's always something that can be brought up for questioning by customs, whether you have a 2-year green card or a 10-year green card, okay? So for the most part, people are generally just fine to travel internationally when they have a 2-year residency card. And also, if your 2-year residency card expired and you filed an I-751 application to renew your conditions, that paper receipt that you get, it's an extension letter and it is proof of your extension, and you can use that as basically an official extension, and you can travel with that and your expired card as well. So generally speaking, it's okay. But again, like I'm saying, you have to think about everything holistically. You have to think about things in a whole circle. So if you have any sort of, like negative issues going on in your case, you want to speak with your lawyer before you travel, okay? Can a U.S. citizen file for parents' green card on a tourist visa from M-Torres? M-Torres, thank you for your question. So generally speaking, if you are a U.S. citizen and your parents happen to be here on their visit visa, there's usually no restriction on you filing for their green card. But what I would say is that typically you want to honor 90 days. Like if you file for your parents as soon as they enter the U.S., that may create a problem of misrepresentation of intention to USCIS. I always say it's good to wait 2 to 3 months after they enter. But yeah, if you are a U.S. citizen and your parents are here in the U.S., if they entered the visit visa, even if the visit visa is expired and they've been here for many years, there's generally no restriction for you to apply for them. So even if their status is long since expired, you should still be able to hopefully apply for them. But some of the issues that get in the way of parents are going to be if your parent has a problem of misrepresentation. So if your parent has ever committed fraud or misrepresentation to immigration, then that will be an issue in their case. Number two, if your parent does not have a legal entry, that will also be an issue in their case. And if that's the situation, you can give us a call, 212-248-7907, so we can kind of see what we can do to help you, okay? Layla filed a VAWA and I got a restricted social security number, no work permit. Does that mean I won't be able to work? From Layla. Layla, no, that's really interesting. It's a little bit strange. Normally you would not get a social security number unless you also got a work permit. So I would actually check your case status online, Layla, to see if your work permit was actually approved or if your I-360 was approved. Because usually you're not going to get a social security card unless your work permit has already been approved. But if you have the social security card from before you filed VAWA, then that means you got it a long time ago and it's not connected to your VAWA application. So that means that you still need to apply for a work permit. So yeah, I guess it just depends, Layla. I hope that helps. Roshani Shah is saying, oops, 1 second. Oh my God, it's so difficult working with these questions. They just pop up. But Roshani, what I saw of your question, I can't find it now, but you're saying that you married a citizen and your I-130 and your I-485 were denied, and what can you do now? If your I-485 has been denied, if your I-130 has been denied, give us a call, 212-248-7907. We've been able to successfully help people. Sometimes your I-485 and I-130 get denied because you don't have the proper documentation, you file incorrectly, or because your spouse withdraws the case or doesn't show up to the interview. We've been able to help a lot of people in all of the situations, okay? 212-248-7907. How much is VAWA? Also, if we have DACA, can we get the new ID to fly from Dawson Jenny? Dawson Jenny, give us a call, 212-248-7907. How much I would charge would depend on a few different factors, and we need to do a case evaluation first. And if you already have DACA, here's the good news for a lot of I had a client actually ask for me to highlight cases where we've gotten green cards approved for DACA clients who did VAWA. We are waiting for a green card to be sent to us for one of our DACA clients who just got her medical RFE. If you have DACA and you don't have a legal entry and you file for VAWA, for our clients, we do usually file an I-485 and an I-131 along with the VAWA application. So you may actually be able to get your travel document and travel as well, even though you have DACA, okay? You can call us, Jenny, 212-248-7907. How long do you think I have to wait for my interview? I'm married to a citizen and I submitted my paperwork in December, probably 6 months to a year. Evelyn Gutierrez, I think you asked me this question before about what to expect at your master calendar hearing. Evelyn, you're saying there's no hardship, but there has to be a hardship. If you're doing a 42B cancellation of removal application in court, you have to have hardship. Otherwise, you're going to get denied. So you have to make sure your lawyer is working hard to dig in your case to find a hardship to present to the court. Trong, I got an NOID for missing hepatitis B in April 24, and I filed since April 22. Trong, if you get your hepatitis B exam, shot done, you can try to reopen the case, but you may need to file a fresh case all over again. What if the immigrant is the one that's the abusive one and now the citizen no longer wants to proceed? What happens next? Well, don't proceed. Look, I get this question a lot, and I have a lot of sympathy for anyone who's in an abusive relationship, but sometimes I get like weird attacky messages saying that as though like I'm promoting people to be abused if as long as it's not the US citizen. It's not true. If you're a US citizen and you're married to somebody and they are abusing you, please make yourself safe. You don't have to stay in a relationship. I would never advocate for anyone staying in a relationship where they're being hurt. And if you are being abused and you filed for that person, well, that's the great part. You have the power to not do the application, okay? Now, the reason why I talk about VAWA as, why I advocate for VAWA and why I advocate for people to not stay in an abusive relationship when they're undocumented is because, when you're a US citizen, if you're going through domestic violence, you have a much safer legal standing than somebody who's undocumented, who's suffering that from a US citizen. And when you're undocumented and you're married to a US citizen, not only do you not have status, but the US citizen is also, hurting you, your life is much more at risk in a way, because number one, you're fearing for your safety from your partner, but number two, you're also fearing whether the government is going to deport you, right? So the dynamics are just different, right? And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to advocate on behalf of millions of immigrants who are going through this. Guys, I saw a video yesterday from one of my colleague attorneys who was like, don't bring me fake VAWA cases. And I have to talk about this because, yes, of course, there's fake immigration cases of all sorts, but that's why the government makes you go through a process to prove your case. The reality is that a lot of lawyers will automatically dismiss people's cases because it doesn't fit their standard. And when the person's case doesn't fit their standard of what they believe is abuse or, extreme cruelty or battery, then they tend to automatically dismiss you because you don't have enough proof, or your story does not fit what they think is real. And that's just a shame. Your case will never be successful if your lawyer doesn't believe you, okay? So anyway, you deserve a lawyer. Everybody here deserves a lawyer who's going to fight for them. And that's what we're here for. As much as we can, we will fight for people, and we do it the right way. We want to do things within the law in our firm, okay? So you can give us a call at 212-248-7907 if you're looking for assistance, okay? All right, everybody, that's all the time that I have for today. I hope you found this helpful. If you're finding my videos fun, if you like my videos, if you're finding them useful, please share them with your friends and your loved ones. You never know when the knowledge you share is going to help someone's life out, okay? And again, if you're an immigrant, you're undocumented, keep your head up high. The piece of paper does not define your value as a human being. Just remember that, okay? You're here to do some great things. You're adding to this country no matter what people say, all right? I hope you all have a great day. If you need to call us 212-248-7907, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Take care, everybody. God bless.